Yo, it's time for more Twilight Princess. In this episode, I'll be taking on the south section of the Faron Woods. This will be including the forest entrance, the spring, and Coro's house. I love this man. Faron Woods is probably one of the most nostalgic areas for me. I have always just loved the atmosphere it brings and how you get to revisit this pretty little forest many times throughout the game. So let's build it. You should know the drill by now. Mini-map. Hand it over. With the last episode I did on Twilight Princess being over a year ago, I had a little trouble finding the same size I used for the previous area. When I did end up pasting it in, I thought it looked pretty good size-wise, but once I started building, I quickly realized that it was slightly too big. But hey, bigger is better, and I can add more detail this way. Alright, and now that we have the map pasted in, we can now begin. Stop. We gotta do the bridge first. The bridge has two gates at either end with vines growing up the one on the Orden side. I have to move over the mountains in the background because I didn't center it properly when I made them. And also lucky for me, I don't have to build the doors at the gates because after you use them in game, they seemingly disintegrate. I also wanted to touch up this rock formation in the background. In the first two episodes of this series, I was mainly going off the NoClip website, which uses the GameCube version of the game, since having free cam is very useful for what I'm doing, but I've come to realize that I should be referencing the HD version because I think it looks better. I know, they changed barely anything from the original. The only reason people say that is because Wind Waker's got realistic lighting that was a huge visual change, but Twilight Princess already had realistic lighting, so I mean you can't really do the same thing here. So a resolution upgrade and a touch up here and there is good enough for me. And I'll point out some interesting differences between the two of them from here on out. Starting with these rocks. They used to be this weird white to brownish texture before a hard cut to gray. Year ago me was like, yeah, that's future me's problem. That's why I also didn't build the bridge. But in the HD version, they have this mossy texture which I think looks and fits a lot better going into a forest and all. So I go with that. But before I add in the moss, I add some cracks to the stone to add some variation. I can now begin height mapping Faron Woods. Some people in my comments were wondering how I do the terrain for these builds, and I plan on making a full terrain guide going over different methods I use in detail, but until that, I'll give you a watered down version. The plugin I use for this part is GoBrush. I use Flint to open up the GUI and select the circle brush. I can then raise the terrain to roughly where I need it, using the flat mode to expand surfaces outward. This helps me make a bare bones version of the terrain so I'm not overwhelmed when I'm smoothing it. Then to shape it into the final product, I used to use Voxel Sniper's blend ball brush, but now ever since the Axiom mod came out, I can't go back. Axiom Smooth Tool is like way better and like 10 times as fast. The only problem I have with it is that it doesn't look nearly as satisfying in the replay time lapse, so I added a little first person view cam. Now when I finished the final shape of the terrain, I then used the plugin Archeon to apply an angle mask. Basically, an angle mask allows you to target certain steepness in your terrain. So I replaced the flatter parts of the terrain with grass. Of course, I don't want every flat part to be grass, so I go back through and change them back to stone. In this case, being any mountain peaks or terrain underwater. I then shade the stone, making the steeper parts darker, and adding in cracks to match the rest of the terrain. On the other side of the bridge, there's a dirt path along a mossy stone ground. Once you're in Faron Woods, there's not a whole lot going on. There's a path leading down to an open area, this being where you fight your first shadow beast. Ferns run along the edges of the natural walls, and these big oak trees have their roots spilling over them. Speaking of which, we need to make some larger oak tree assets. A tree tutorial is something I would also want to touch on, so like the terrain, I'll briefly explain my process here before I make a full video on it. To make an oak tree, I start with the trunk and roots and make my way up to the top. When building the branches, I made this tree way too small. It's like the same size as the other ones. Moving that to the side, I forced myself to work with a much larger stump. When building the branches, you want to keep the shape of your leaves in mind. Visualize how the tree would look with leaves and try to get a consistent round shape with no dips or branches that really stick out from the rest. If you find that there would be a lack of leaves in a certain spot, build another branch to fill that space. If the terrain you're going to be pasting on is a little hilly, making roots that extend further down can help. To color the tree, I use spruce planks as the highlights because they're a light brown and they match the fences I like to use. And then I use mangrove wood to mark the shadows. After you're happy with your trunk, you want to make a leaf asset. I use a plugin called Schematic Brush Reborn to place my assets with random rotation. If your tree looks too bushy or not bushy enough, try resizing your leaves. Right outside of the spring, there are some vines hanging down from 2 tree stumps. Actually, I'm pretty sure that this one is just a really long root. This is also where a gate used to be towards the beginning of the game, when you're trying to catch up to Tallow. But just like the bridge gate, it disappears right after you're done with that section of the game. It might be just me, but I could have sworn that the gate remained open here. Like after you're done, they're like left swinging open, but there's just nothing. Let me know if I'm alone on this, I'm curious. Now onto the spring. The spring consists of 2 waterfalls flowing into multiple pools. Around the pools are various plant life weaving through more of these ancient stones. This used to be by far my favorite place when I was younger, and probably still is. I remember always wanting to desperately go up to these higher layers, because in Kakariko Village, it had a secret way up to its spring, which I thought was so cool. But now, dream achieved. There had to be something planned to be up here at one point, right? You can actually walk up here and this part is mapped on the map. This tree in the middle of everything is slightly bigger than the other ones, so I decided to exaggerate that a little bit because I thought it would look cool. So something that I find really cool is that this pretty turquoise water is actually completely clear. Twilight Princess just textures the terrain underneath to give the illusion that it's colored. Me and a lot of other builders I know actually use this technique pretty often. Here's a recent build I did of a swamp. This is for a server spawn that I didn't really want to use real water because it might be annoying to traverse, so instead I used cyan glass with green concrete underneath to give it a green swamp water look. Will I be using this technique here? Well, yes, but actually no. Minecraft doesn't have a lot of turquoisey blocks, but they do have a lot of brown blocks. So I used those and changed the biome to a warm water ocean, so when I place the water on top, it will get that turquoise hue. So now all I need to do is place down some temporary blocks and fill this in with water, and then it should be as easy as just brick and... What? Hold on. Easy as just breaking them right after. See, this is why I had the physics off in the first place. To fix this, I make a copy of the area, then fill only that layer with water. I then take that specific layer and copy it back over to the original. When pasting the water with World Edit, it won't update, so it shouldn't flood everything. Now heading into this cave, there's not a whole lot aside from a few Dekubabas. But exiting the cave, we have this weird fence up against the wall to the left, leading to the gate entrance of another cave. Now arriving at the final stretch, we have Coro's house. Coro is awesome. He gives you a free lantern to help out his oil business, and when you can't afford his oil, you feel bad. What? That's not right, guy. But I gave you that lantern for free, man. He gives you keys when you need them. He builds random useless fences. He hangs up pots on trees for some reason. And he gives bangers soup. To the right, we have a dirt ramp where you jump into his house as a wolf later. And my man Clyde. The house itself is a bunch of decaying wood with cloth draped on the side. The roof is made out of hay, leaves, and what seems to be a giant stick. And is that a double-decker chimney? This man has it all. I won't be building the area where you get part of the skybook because I'm building the game as I play through it again and I don't have access to that area. I could just use FreeCam, but it's been a while since I've been that far in the game and I don't exactly remember what it looks like, and the terrain gets kinda confusing. That leaves the only thing left to do is the gate to Hyrule Field. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I talked a little bit about making tutorial content in this video, and when I do end up making any tutorial videos, I'll most likely post them off schedule. I'll continue to make fun videos every 2 weeks. I'm not just gonna disappoint somebody expecting something fun and they get a tutorial video. But with that said, I am totally down to make any type of tutorial video. So if you want me to prioritize anything specific, let me know. The only topic I probably wouldn't be able to teach would be organics. I wouldn't say I mastered that department yet. Next video, I'm probably going to do on Lethal Company. That's a topic I've been eyeing for a while now. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching. Man, I went through all of winter not being sick, and now I get sick in summer? Damn.